Hello and welcome to the show. This is Aquarium Dilemmas and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Kerri and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome to Aquarium Dilemmas. Welcome to episode 5.
I can't believe it's 5 already.
Filters, where we talk about every aquarium dilemma you pretty much could ever have. And today we're going to dive way into filters. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Probably won't get it all done in one episode.
No. And we don't know everything there is about aquarium filters. The more and more I read, the more I realized I have a lot more to learn. And more options than I knew about. There's a lot more options on the market. And even like DIY options out there that I did not know about. And I'm so glad I do.
And there's lots of little DIY tips and tricks that we've done with all the stuff we've tried.
There's always something to tinker with.
That we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about all the filtration that we have used and tried and found successful for some of ScienceGal, a.k.a. Kerri's, tanks.
Yes. Starting off, though, to be honest, I am a little bit of a filter snob because I've only used a small handful of options, and I started with an underground filter. That was my first filter. That's what I kind of honestly think of when I go to the pet store or the fish store. I kind of feel like they should be underground or underground filters because that's just what I think about. That was my first tank. I had my neon gravel on top of it, and if you don't know what that is, it's an older filter. It had like a plastic piece with 2 plastic tubes that kind of snapped in the back corners, and you put an airline tube and an air stone in there, and then you covered that plate with gravel. And I don't remember like cleaning it properly. I over cleaned and vacuumed all of that gravel when I did vacuum, but I did that sporadically. So I feel like there's a lot more options and better options out there, but if that's what you choose to use, then it still works. It's still a good filter for what it is.
Well, that's a good segue because undergravel filters, we, now that I'm been with you, you've never used one here.
No, and I probably won't use one again, but like I said, it was my first filter, and that's just what I think of, like old fish stores. You walk in and you hear the bubbling, and you see in the back, each back corner had that. It was always like a clear tube, and you had the the bubble stones, the air stones in the corner, and that's just what I think of.
Well, now when I walk into a local fish store, it's usually either
sponge filters,
or you might say a hang on the back.
Yeah, and I probably should do a lot more research. I just always used them. I was a 90s kid. That's when I had my teenager years, so that's what I used in the 90s was the undergravel filters. And for what they were, they did work good for the options. And I took a little bit of time off, but once I got my first aquarium or my first apartment and I had a larger tank, there was hang on the back filters available now. But kind of going back a little bit, do you want to explain, or do you want me to explain, like what kind of filters? There's 3 kind of filters I think of. There's biological.
There's biological filters, chemical filtration, and mechanical filtration.
And that's kind of how I break filters, like categories, and then within each one of those, there's different options.
Well, there's those.
And then on top of that, you can mix them all together.
Well, there's those 3 types of filtration.
Yes.
And all of those 3 types of filtration are used in, for the most part, your filters. Because at some point it has to be mechanical.
Well, there's some of my tanks in the fish room, I don't even have any filtration in them. So you don't have to use.
And that is a well-established tank.
Yes. But in the beginning, I do like the mechanical filtration. But to even explain what it is, I think of it as things that remove particulates from the water. And in my head, it's things that typically plug in.
Anything that plugs in, yes. And I'm the same way, 100%. I like to low-key everything, keep it simple. Mm-hmm. The marine method, the KISS method.
Oh.
Keep it simple.
That's like,
if it plugs in, then it's mechanical. Well, guess what? You can have mechanical with chemical. You can have mechanical with chemical and biological. They all can be combined. Mm-hmm. That can be from your canister filter. That can be from your hang on the back filter. Mm-hmm. That can even be from your sponge filter.
Yes. Yeah, and as I got a little bit more experienced and my mind opened, I kind of learned how to intermix them. Because even on your hang on the back filter, there's biological stuff that grows on just the container of your filter if it fits down into your fish tank or whatever's inside that water. It has the surface area because it can grow bacteria on it to kind of help. But I kind of like a mix. I don't do the chemical. I've tried a little bit in the past, but I'm not the best at like measuring things out, and whatever my water chemistry is, I usually just kind of work with it. But I do like the combination of mechanical and biological filtration together. That's my favorite. But out of that, I usually like a hang on the back or a Tetra Whisper filter, which I always kind of classified it as a hang on the back because I hang them on. I use the clip. I don't like the suction cups, but technically I think they're internal power filters.
They're what they call a power filter.
Yes.
And there's basically about 8 different main varieties of filters, but to take a half a step back,
we're all out of order, but that's the fun of discussing it, I guess.
Take a half step back. Biological is basically anything that can grow beneficial bacteria that will eat ammonia, nitrite, nitrate.
Mm-hmm. It helps you out a lot.
So to get to my point that anyone that's already listened to this podcast knows, your substrate, plants, your biomedia, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that can go into your filters, and some filters already come with those. Mm-hmm. And then your chemical. So your chemical is going to have like charcoal, activated carbon. It's going to have phosphates in it. The slide-in cartridges, that's what they consider chemical.
Yeah.
Because it is removing particulates from the water to clarify it and purify it.
Yes.
So they call that chemical filtration. Yes. You can also add chemicals to your water, obviously.
Yes.
Which is another thing you can do.
Yeah, the only thing that I really add to my water right now is I do use Prime. I use a water conditioner, but that's not the only one I've used. I'll kind of try different ones here and there, but I usually go back to Prime at some point down the line. And I use a little bit of that. And I don't even really use fertilizers anymore. I probably should. I've used liquid fertilizers in the past, but things that make my pH go up or down or anything like that, I don't use. And I don't use the activated carbon. I used to use it all the time because I always had those inserts for my hang on the back, but I don't use that anymore.
And then mechanical, they consider anything that aerates the water, which hang on the back, a canister, all of that can do that. And it removes free floating waste, like large particles, like dying off plants, just large excess of fish poop, anything like that. So when you're researching a filter, almost all filters will do a little bit of all 3 of those things.
Yeah. And I'm thankful because it like I said, I do have some fish tanks that don't use filtration. And honestly, they were my longest running ones. And at some point, the filter got clogged or something happened and it just stopped working. And we just never fixed it, didn't have time to get to it. But my tanks are very well planted now. They're very planted, especially the ones that I don't have filters on. So that does help. I don't panic in those tanks if my filter breaks. Whereas if it's a new tank with no plants in it, I do.
So you used to just throw a filter away?
Yes. Before you entered my life and I started getting into the hang on the backs or the Tetra Whisper filters, I'm new to the sponge filter game. I've only used, I think I have 4 now, but that's a new addition to my life. But going back, if they clogged and they just stopped working, I did not realize that you could take them apart and modify, like you could put additional media. I just had the cartridges, and if I would replace them or rinse them out in my sink with tap water and put them back in, which I don't recommend doing that at all.
Well, it's not the right way to do it.
No, not at all. But that's what I did because I didn't know any better. But if they did not work properly, then I would toss them out and I would go right back to usually at that time Walmart because we didn't have another fish store option, and I would just replace it.
Well, shameless plug, but if you want to know how to take apart a hang on the back filter, they're all pretty much the same. Check out ScienceGal Aquatics. I will show you how to take a filter apart. Super easy, and one that is majorly been unplugged for a long time in a well-established tank.
Yeah. Well, and like I kind of do lump them all together. I think of anything like the Tetra Whispers, they sit inside your tank. They sit inside my tanks. So whereas the proper hang on the back kind of sits on the rim of your tank, and then there's that long tube that goes into your tank. But the one drawback to those is if you do have like a power outage or they stop working or something and you don't notice it, they will make, if they run dry or something like that, they will make a noise that's not very good, and they don't turn back on with your electricity. Whereas the canister filter, the Fluval, we have an FX4 upstairs in the larger tank, it'll prime itself and turn right back on. So,
well, and it depends on what kind of canister filter it is. Well,
I've tried them. Like, I've tried the stuff that you can get at the pet store. I've tried the Tetra Whisper filters. I've tried the Aquarium hang on the backs and the Top Fin hang on the backs. I think I've tried an Aqua Clear in the years past. I've tried different ones, but I still like, those are the hang on the backs.
Aqua Clear makes a little bitty one that goes in the little tin that I'm looking at over here, little rimless tin. There's 8 different types of major ones, and we've used 4 of them that I have physically put my hands on in the time that I've been with you. What they consider a box filter, which goes completely submerged inside the rim of the tank.
Yes.
Which we have one in the 40.
I think it's a Fluval U2.
And it has cartridges.
It's a U series.
It has cartridges on both sides that have sponges in it. And then in the middle, it has biomedia. And basically all the water flows in through the sides. It pushes flow straight out the top. You submerge it, and it moves the water around circularly through. And not a lot of flow, which goes back to when you're picking your filter, you got to think about the species of your fish. And then you have your canisters. What Kerri said, we have the FX4 upstairs. Super, super easy. Setup is relatively simple. Takes about 20 minutes to do it all right. Get everything just the way you want it. But wonderful system. If it kicks off due to a power outage, it'll kick right back on.
And the one thing the reason why I like the Whisper filter so much is they do sit inside your tank, and I don't feel like they leak a whole lot. Every once in a while, if they get kind of cockeyed a little bit, they might kind of have a little overflow off the top, and they're quiet. They're super quiet. I don't hear them. And growing up, like, if I had, I always wanted my dad to have more and more tanks. But if my mom could hear a filter or any type of bubbling noise or anything, it was off. So I'm really glad those are so quiet, because now that my dad has a tank, I might be able to talk her into getting him another tank eventually. So that is a big perk, is I don't feel like with the water leaving the aquarium and coming back to the aquarium, I don't have as much fear as them leaking. But the one thing about hang on the backs, and I can't remember what brand it is, but there's some that has like this water wheel feature to the top.
Yeah,
and I don't like those. Now, granted, I tear all that apart now, and I'll put sponge and different type of media in an aquarium bag inside of that, so I don't worry about any of that anymore. But that was one that had that water wheel feature. I just don't like those. And some tanks that I've had in recent years past, is the filter and everything is built in to the aquarium. And I felt like I would really like that in the beginning. But when a part breaks,
It's wonderful for me to tear apart. That is.
And having like the extra compartment in the back of the aquarium is really nice, because you can put your heater in that and you don't see it. And, you know, if I could have a tank where you don't see any of the filter or the heaters and it's all covered up, that would be ideal.
Well, yeah.
But for me,
cords are the menace of
cords and just having, like, that's the one thing I do, even though I'm new to sponge filters, I do like them, but I don't know. Even though like the Tetra Whisper filter still sits in my tank and it takes up a lot of room, I feel like because it's raised a little bit, I just like it a little bit better than the sponge filter just sitting at the bottom. But I do prefer having a sponge filter in my shrimp tanks now.
Well, and it depends.
Yeah, and
are you having multiple tanks? Are you
yes,
multiple
I do
tank syndrome?
See,
sponge filter, that's probably if you got multiple tanks, sponge filter, that's probably your way out.
Yes.
If you're brand new and you went to the fish store, you probably got a kit and it probably has a hang on the back.
Yes. And that's one, like, I do appreciate going to the store and having a kit, because I feel like it's a little cheaper, and whatever it comes with, I'm going to make work. But I know now how to make it work better than I did a handful of years ago, when I just would get a kit and I would set up and have the inserts and I would use them. But I do feel like, though, having sponge filters is an advantage if you had like one of those, piston air pumps or a piston pump, and you can have, I don't know, 60 to 100 tanks, and you have airline. That would be a huge advantage to have sponge filters in all your tanks, and to maintenance them, all you have to do is disconnect like one airline and put them in some tank water and squeeze them out every so often. When they get a little clogged, when you see your bubbles kind of slowing down, is when I'll clean them out and kind of rinse them off just in the tank water that's coming out, and then
You'd have
they're
to have
really
60
easy.
different buckets.
Yeah, they're really easy to maintenance. They're really easy to clean or to set up, and they are quieter than I had in my head, because I think that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to try them for so long, was because in my head I thought it was just going to be really just constant. And I do like the sound of bubbling water, like a fish tank that you can hear the filter a little bit. But all of my tanks running like that, but they're surprisingly quiet. I have two down here right now. I have one in front of me and one behind me in this tank right here. And I can't.
Well, that brings us right back to our three types of filtration: biological, chemical, and mechanical. Sponge filter still as a form of mechanical, because you have to plug in the air pump to make it work. But the sponge on the outside,
it breeds so much good beneficial bacteria for you. It really does.
And then your power filter, your hang on the back. Same thing. On the inside of it, if you change it out, like Kerri does, and you switch it up to sponges and to biomedia and let all of that sit in there, and as the water cycles through, you're growing nothing but beneficial bacteria.
And I think one of the most kind of, probably what we should have started with, to tell you the truth, kind of deciding which one to go with is, like, in years past, I would go to the store or to Walmart, and I would have, let's say, usually it was a 10-gallon aquarium, and I would have thrown away my filter because it was clogged, and I was going to the store and I needed to buy a new one, so I'd scan through and I'd find something that was rated for a 10-gallon tank, and I'd bring it home and I'd set it up. And now, like, I still pay attention to what the recommendations are, that it's recommended for a 10 to 20 or a 30 to 50 gallon. I still take that to account, but I feel like the fish and kind of what else is, if it's planted or not, more so, yeah, the substrate, but more so the bioload of the fish. Because if I have a highly planted 20-gallon tank with guppies and shrimp, I'm not gonna, if I have a filter and that's all I have in that moment, that, let's say, for example, is rated for a 5-gallon tank, but I have some additional media, some sponge and some biomedia maybe that's got bacteria already on it, and I put it in there, it's gonna be okay just because it's a little bit smaller. But if I have, like, my arowana tank upstairs, I'm gonna go with more of a canister filter because that's a larger tank.
You're trying to move a lot more water volume.
Yes. And so, like, a 10, a 5, 10, a 20, even my 30-gallon bow front, I usually go with a Tetra Whisper filter or some kind of hang on the back that I have. But the 75-gallon that I have upstairs, I've gotten, like, they're not my favorite, but I have a few smaller canister filters. There is one that sits kind of on the side, and it's got, like, a little tube that sits in, but it was kind of hard to mess with. But I've got a new one that I want to try out, and I would say those, like, smaller canister filters, I would go for, like, a 55 or a 75-gallon. But my FX4 that I have upstairs, I'm going to use that for a larger tank.
Well, I know Awase makes the ones for people that are way into aquascaping and everything like that. They make the ones that already have the heater and everything built into the filter.
We haven't tried it yet, but it looks fantastic.
Built into the filter. And they're canister filters. And they claim they're self-priming and all that. I have not personally used them, so I cannot say that. However, they do look wonderful. The idea is great, and they already come with actual media in them, same as the FX4. They come with media in them to collect the good bacteria.
Yeah, and I definitely would research the fish you want versus, you know, if you have a fish that's tiny that can fit in a smaller tank, or if you're going to get a monster fish in a bigger tank versus the bioload, and if it's going to be planted or not planted, all that kind of factors into what. Well,
if it's a big community tank and it's a bunch of little fish with low bioload, you said it earlier, you wouldn't need that big a filter. Even though it's only recommended for a 20, you could get away with that filter on a 40 if it's got a lot of substrate in it and it's got plants.
I just now, instead of going in and thinking to myself, I have a 10-gallon tank, I need a 10-gallon filter, I just take the mindset of my fish have this much bioload, my plants are going to help me with this much, I'm going to maybe water change this much. If I put some bottom dwellers in there, that's going to help kind of move everything around. So I just take a different mindset of what's in it, still what size a tank, because I still like the hang on the backs on a smaller tank. I'm experimenting with the canister filters for the larger tanks, but I definitely like the Fluval 4, the FX4 for the arowana tank. And the sponge filters are always an option. I don't hate them. I think they're a great option.
They're great for quarantine tank too.
Yes, and like if you have a hospital tank or something like that. And I do feel like it's a huge advantage for my shrimp. I feel like I'm having more and more sponge filters introduced into my life because of my shrimp. Because I just feel like they're always grazing on them, and there's no way. I can't say absolutely without certainty that there's no way, but there's less likely that I'm going to lose a shrimplet in a sponge filtered tank than my hang on the back or my Tetra Whisper filter. And even sometimes in years past, I've taken some sponge and kind of slowed down that intake, kind of blocked that off with some sponge, and that it helps for a little while until it gets moved. But I feel like if you have a larger fish room and you have the ability to get a larger pump and you can have an airline drop to each tank, I think that would be a huge advantage, though, to having sponge filters hooked up that way. But
and you can do multiple types of filtration, and again, it just goes back to the species of fish. Do they like high flow? Are you looking to really circulate and rock this tank, or is this a beta fish that really doesn't need it?
Yes.
That would prefer a little bitty hang on the back that just trickles water.
Yes. Whereas, like, I have some plecos in my life, and that's one of the challenges with the Tetra Whisper filters is every once in a while, I'll either have them to where the flow's going long way, or then I'll kind of switch it and I'll put it to where it's hanging to where the flow's just going front to back. But there's always a spot in there that doesn't seem to get as much circulation. So sometimes you can try to put a sponge filter, especially if it's a larger tank. If you have like a 55-gallon with a hang on the back in one corner and a sponge filter in the other one to kind of help circulate the water a little bit in an area. And it's usually where the algae is kind of building up at the bottom. There's not a lot of flow there. That's usually, I'm like, I probably should move things around maybe a little bit, give that a chance, kind of circulate a little bit. But yeah.
I'm still going. I enjoyed the fact you told me when we got into this, you were like, these filters aren't working. I'm just throwing them away. And I went, why are you throwing them away? Well, they're not working. I said, well, then can I play with them? And you're like, yeah, play with them. They don't work. I don't care. I'm throwing them away. And I tore them apart. And they're not that complicated. They're really even not. The canister filters are the same.
That FX4 upstairs that we have, I was kind of intimidated a little bit because they are expensive. It's a filter that it's an investment. I think that if you have a larger tank, you're already in it for an investment, so you might as well. But
you need it to move that quantity.
Yeah.
You have to cycle that much volume of water. But do not be. Because I am the parts guy, folks.
I just like the pep that comes back on by itself.
Thank you for listening, but I am the parts guy. I am the one that if there's a problem, I have to figure it out.
Well, that's why I have you here, to introduce, like, oh, by the way.
But pumps are not that complicated. There's a few things you have to know about them. You can check out ScienceGal Aquatics YouTube. You'll see some videos about it. They're not as bad. They are intimidating, though, especially when you get up to canisters. Even Kerri had me scared.
Yeah, but once
you can't
it's just because it's so expensive. I don't want to do something that will break it. Because when you're first taking apart something or cleaning up, let's say it was probably honestly the first time we were maintaining it, or whatever the word is, and you're nervous because it's your first time.
The first maintenance?
Yes, and you don't know, like, okay, I don't want to push this part too hard because it'll snap off, and then I'll never, but once you get over that, it's completely easy. It's I think the hardest part is trying to get it back into the cabinet that it goes under.
Yeah, that's the whole dilemma itself, is taking the filter apart, because you bought it, you invested the money, and then you're like, now I gotta figure this out.
Yes. But there's a few different options that are out there too that I would like to try that I just haven't. Like, for if we ever get a larger tank for the arowana, we're always shopping for a larger tank because he's always growing. But eventually, I think we would like to try a sump, like building a sump of some sort. Right now, the fact of drilling a tank terrifies me. And then drilling it, putting it all together, and then having a leak. I know it's completely possible. I've seen people do it, and it works great. I just haven't tried it yet. I'm still building up confidence to do it.
It's okay. It terrifies me.
Yeah,
drilling
Matten
a tank.
filters, I've seen them. I feel like in years past, I might have even tried them, but I just can't remember. But I know that I would like to try them for something, for a shrimp tank in the future, just to try it out, either for the first time or again. I just can't remember. But there are a couple different, and there's numerous different, like every time I look at filters, there's a brand or something that I just didn't realize.
The filter market, if you go on Amazon,
for all budgets too, you can go
from the very high end to the very low end. And we do not know every brand. No one, I don't believe, knows any
I'm
brand.
sure there's some that know them all, but I don't. But it's fun trying.
Well,
now that I'm more open-minded and not such a filter
there's
snob.
Nobody that has used every brand, knows every brand specifically. There's so many out there. However, just do your research, look at the reviews, see what the comments are on those. And if it's affordable and you want to try it out, try it out. I would love to know how it works. I'm all about bang for the buck.
And there's only one that I really would never try again. It was a little bitty, I don't remember the brand, but it was a little bitty beta filter, and it had like a teeny tiny spray bar on it. And I don't recommend that one if you ever run across something like that.
That's one of the little box filters.
It was a teeny tiny one.
And the only reason that one messed up, in my opinion, unfortunately, is our water. It's too hard.
Yeah, I just didn't like it. And I've tried, like spray bar, like I guess they're called spray bars. They're really delicate, and you put an airline tube to it and a little pump, and it blows air through it, and I just always break them. But I don't use those in any way for filtration because it just helps add oxygen to the water.
You're just aerating the water.
Yeah, just aerating. But I just don't. I always break them in large air stones.
That's all back
drop
to mechanical
them. Yeah,
filtration.
I drop them and I break them. So if you have them, be careful and don't drop them. But I'm glad that I'm willing to try new things now. Especially, like, it's not the easiest to get a hold of new filters here. I'm still kind of limited. But the fact that I can order stuff and try new stuff like that. And every time I go shopping or I look online, like, there's always some, just not always filters, but there's always some kind of product that you're like, what is this? What is this?
Well, bottom line, we use lots of mechanical filtration, but it is doubled up behind biological filtration.
Yes. And the one time we have an outside koi pond and we had a pond pump and we put it in like a Tupperware box and we drilled holes all over it and then we dumped a bunch of media in there and tried to make our own. So the more you learn and the more you know why things are the way
that
they
box
are.
worked really well.
It really did. Now we took it away because we thought, I thought which is true. The koi needed more swimming room because they got larger, but it really helped with the pond pump itself. Just didn't clog as much because it had all that protection. Plus, it was always more. It was just generally clearer with when we had that. But the more you know why we do things in the hobby and everything, then you can understand to make things yourself. Maybe you don't want to buy filters anymore at all and you want to build your own or build something that will work. Or if you know why we need filtration and all this stuff in your tanks, then you can eventually kind of, I don't know, just do anything, build anything.
Well, you need to use filtration to a point. To a point, you have to use it.
Well, you don't have to use it at all.
Well,
if it's
this goes into cycling a tank. We're going to have to go into. It's going to have to be like an 8-part series into cycling a tank. But to cycle a tank, I believe, and I can be 100% wrong. You're going to have to use some sort of filtration to help speed up the process.
It definitely helps if you have some. I don't know what's it called, seeded filtration, or just some filtration that's got some bacteria on it that, like, I'll take one of the media bags that's in the filter.
So you're moving biological filtration to another brand new tank.
Yes, it helps jumpstart that for you. But even, let's say, I wouldn't recommend, like, I wouldn't necessarily do this, but let's say I have to have a tank today. It's got to be set up with fish in it today, but I don't have any of that. You can always, let's say I have a tank that has a bunch of plants in it. There's still bacteria and stuff that grow all over those plants. Just because it's not aquarium media, it's still, or you can move substrate over to the it doesn't have to be from a filter to start a tank. It's just something that has bacteria that's grown on the surface area of it to help jumpstart the tank. But I find it's easier if I have something going on and I need to have a tank set up right then. It's just easier for me to grab either a sponge filter or some aquarium media from another filter or something and just set it up and use that and get it going. And because sometimes if you mess up your substrate too much and you don't want to crash and just like disrupt all that either. So sometimes it's easiest where you don't have to disturb as much just to grab that from a filter and just move it over, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to me, but it has to make sense to
Hopefully.
the listeners.
Hopefully.
Any way you can move beneficial bacteria, depending on your timeline, is very important.
But for the sake of kind of wrapping things up here, I would say your fish, what goes into that your fish tank and the bio load of that particular stuff you're wanting to care for, and goes into your filter decision, the size of your tank. Because if it's a little bit like, I don't know, 30 gallons or below, I would go on more of a hang on the back type or a sponge filter. If it's a little larger, you could go with a canister filter. Or if it's huge and you're experienced to know what you're doing, you could even try a sump pump on a larger tank. But I think in your budget, sometimes it's just hard to spend $200-300 on a filter, and you got to keep it a little bit on a smaller budget. And there's still options that work fantastic.
Oh, there's lots of options, and you can use multiple applications of the filtration. You can put a sponge filter in there.
Yeah.
You can have a little hang on the back canister.
Yeah.
You can have 2 hang on the back filters.
I just think it works
and a
best
sponge filter running.
if you use biological and mechanical filtration together. But if you can't, you can't. And if you don't want to and it doesn't work, then it doesn't work for you. Some people just like the natural no filter at all method, and I like those tanks too.
Well, and those are awesome. But those are usually
more well-established.
Well-established tanks.
Well-cycled.
There is,
but it's still
however
an
the
option.
kids say it now, hashtag well-established tank. That tank has been there a long time.
It's something to shoot for. It looks good. And I think that if your aquarium is planted versus not planted, I think kind of contributes a little bit. Because whether it was a hang on a back or a canister filter, if it's a heavily planted tank, I'm not going to freak out as much if it has a hiccup. But if it was a heavily planted tank that was a little larger, that still had a lot of bioload to it, I might a little bit more. But it just depends on what you're wanting to keep, your budget. There's a few factors you just need to factor in, I guess, and think about. But there's an option for everything.
Well, kind of the order of our episodes. Tank size. The mistakes we've made. I mean, what fish are you putting in there?
But hopefully this helped in some way.
I mean,
hopefully
and then what substrate you got in there?
Hopefully this didn't confuse you on your decision even more. So I really hope you learned something from all of this filter talk. I really appreciate you listening and being here. And we always invite you to check out ScienceGal Aquatics on YouTube. If you would like to join the membership, we have a membership as low as 99 cents. So we always invite you to check that out too, if you would like to watch this wonderful podcast.
Yep. Thank you for tuning in and listening, downloading. Check us out.
And good luck on your filter decision. I hope we helped just a little bit. So thank you so much. And until the next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.